Hello, everyone. Welcome to Compliance Quick Cuts. My name is Travis Schwab, CEO of Eventus Systems. I'm really excited to be joined today by Oliver Blower, who's the CEO of VoxSmart. Oliver, please join us. All right, there, good.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Good to join you.
Yeah, welcome. Really super happy to have you here. So, Oliver, we brought Oliver on because he's an expert in communication surveillance. He's been the CEO of VoxSmart for a number of years. He's been in the business for 20 years, like myself. You can see a little grayish in both of our respective facial hairs. Oliver is much more successful on the facial growth than myself. But anyway, super excited to have you here today to talk about a lot of buzzwords that we're going to start at least within the conversation, but then really dig into, do they mean anything really to our clients and everything else? So we're talking about holistic surveillance under any market conditions. I want to just, in fact, jump in to the idea of holistic surveillance. And VoxSmart does communication surveillance, Eventus Systems does trade surveillance. Is there such a thing in your mind when you're talking to your clients, when we're talking to our clients, of holistic surveillance? Is this is this an aspirational thing? Does it exist? Do we want it to exist? Give me just your idea on when you hear that very buzzy consultative word, holistic. What do you think?
Yeah, no, thank you, and obviously delighted to join you today, and really super excited about our partnership. I think years ago somebody said to me, security is a journey, not a destination, and I actually think surveillance is a journey and not a destination. And I think about that because I love the idea that one day we'll get to a place where one vendor can help firms manage all of their communications and trade risk. I just don't think we're there yet, and I think we got to be super honest with ourselves, with our clients, with the market about the art of the possible. I love the idea of talking about the future and helping build that future together and go on that journey. But we got to be super honest and super pragmatic about what can be done, and also recognize that in order to build a solid house, you've got to have solid foundations. And a lot of firms want to try and get to the end game because it's super exciting and they can see all their data in real time in one pane of glass. But the reality is, when you're in a big bank, you've got data coming out of hundreds of different systems in different languages, in different formats, in different time stamps, etc. And the first thing you've got to do is figure out how to normalize that. And then you've got to just do that for a couple of months and years and learn before you then start layering on, the first floor, the second floor. Everybody wants to live in the penthouse, but you realize that there's a bunch of people underneath you that have moved in before you. And I think it's that incremental journey that we have to go on as an industry.
I love that metaphor too of building that house, and that's really, I think, the driver of why we're working together and why we're super excited to work together. Because when we talk to our clients, they bring up comm surveillance and what we want to be able to do, and what we're obviously have been doing with you is saying, talk to Oliver, right? These guys are experts, right? We are experts when we come into an engagement. We are experts in trade surveillance and market risk because they're hard problems to tackle, and so we do that really, really well. But in order for you to have that holistic view, or trying to bring in these other aspects of surveillance, you need to talk to other experts, and then other expert in communications would be VoxSmart. And so that, to me, that DNA of how we approach that client, how we engage with that, I think is so critical as we start moving in that general direction.
Yeah, I completely agree, right? And the thing I like about Eventus is you guys share that similar DNA and that similar philosophy as us, and you guys know that as market participants, and I'll give you a great example that supports what you just said, Travis. When you work for a firm like Bank of America or Barclays, right, and you go and speak to a client, if you're in fixed income, you go and speak to that client about fixed income. And if the client says to you, hey, I'm interested in some of your equities products, you don't try and represent those products. You say, great, let me introduce my colleague in equities and maybe equity derivatives. And you'll find that the firm to firm relationship is multi-layered, and you have experts speaking with experts and subject matter experts speaking to subject matter experts. That's no different to how you and I engage market participants, right? We've built our business for 5 years around communications and language and mobile, whereas you've built your business around transaction and market data and risk. They're very different animals, similar to fixed income and equities, right? And firms out there that say that they can do everything and they're holistic, I just don't believe them, right? Because I've never met a bank sales guy that can sell every single product and make you a market in every single product. I've met a lot of guys who think they can, but I've never met any successful ones. And the same thing exists in our world, right?
No, you couldn't be more right. And so I think that's just, you know, when our clients talk about, well, then, okay, well, how do we stitch these worlds together? And I think we want to address that a little bit is, you know, because our systems have APIs, because that information is shareable, we can inform each other's systems, right? Everything is time-stamped. We know when things are happening. We can get those data sets either from VoxSmart or from Validus back and forth, and you can bring those worlds together to where you still have a unified experience, but you're again going to the expert as compared to trying to pick, you know, one solution that does everything.
Yeah, look, I think ultimately we want to get to a world in which you have a single pane of glass, right? And you and I both know it's about desktop real estate and it's about owning that client relationship. But if you look at the way that businesses are evolving, you know, a lot of words like toolkit and API and interoperability are not just buzzwords anymore. They're actual true mechanisms by which people build the businesses. And you may have a single pane of glass, but behind the scenes and the engine that provides what you're looking at on the screen can be provided by one or a number of different providers who themselves are domain experts. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit about, Oliver, your clients and how they're dealing with the world that we live in today, right? People working from home, they're in business continuity, they're dealing with at least second quarter, you know, end of first quarter, second quarter record volume, you know, at some points volatility. How have your clients, how has VoxSmart kind of helped your clients deal with some of these, you know, insane conditions?
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, COVID has been the black swan of 2020, if not perhaps our careers, right? And we're old enough to remember other significant market events when clients just disappeared overnight, and big clients like Lehman and AIG and Bear and others, right? So we're kind of resilient in that we've been through this before, so it's not a huge surprise when the world goes upside down again. I mean, what we've seen is our technology, and by our I mean, you know, our sort of respective collective mutual technologies have really encouraged market participants to think about disaster recovery, business continuity, and business planning in a totally different way. I mean, gone are the days where I remember at Merrill, our main office was Paternoster and our DR site was in Bromley. Well, what happens if nobody wants to get on the train, and what happens if nobody's leaving the house? How does your DR planning and your business continuity help in that scenario? So we, you know, have almost become overnight, you know, mission critical, enterprise critical. They're kind of big words, but basically we're being used a lot more and relied on a lot more by market participants. And I think that is going to be the new normal. Gone are the days of having replica offices 30 miles down the road, because the risks have changed. This sort of risk, you know, nobody priced into the trade, to sort of speak market language for a second. It wasn't priced in, and there was therefore a huge correction. But I think going forward, people are going to start to price that risk in now, and how we manage our businesses, you know, perhaps the 2,500, 3,500 people on a trading floor, perhaps that's gone, right? Perhaps it's perhaps it's a significant haircut on that number, and it's a hybrid model where, you know, what's really come out of this, which I think is interesting, is you can trade from home, right?
Go figure.
For years, people, they were probably telling their wives, no, darling, I can't possibly trade from home. I have to be in the office because, you know, my lunch date needs me. But the idea that this is possible has changed the way market participants are now thinking about not only their technology, but their business practices and their people management and their culture. It's transformational, and I'm super excited to see how it's going to transform businesses going forward.
It really is. And, you know, it's been interesting, you know, from us, you know, we really started as distributed entity, right? We've been on these tools, we've been on Slack and Zoom and these messaging apps for 5 years, 6 years since we started. And so when obviously the financial sector has been moving to these distributed tools for some time, not wholesale, but COVID has been such a catalyst. And really, I think Wall Street has been resilient on the whole because of that move over the last 5-10 years to these type of tools.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Go ahead.
No, please finish. Sorry.
No, what I'm curious about is how, when you have this rapid adoption of necessary, you know, all of a sudden a new communications channel or approach almost overnight, right? Whether someone's using WhatsApp all the time or they're using a new Slack or whatever that is, how do you help your clients respond to that, right? How do you build in that resiliency to be able to take in new channels or new mechanisms virtually overnight?
Yeah, I mean, quickly, with agility, with innovation and a smile on our face. No, you know, what's super interesting when we look back over our business, we've been capturing and recording WhatsApp messages for nearly 5 years, right? And this is at a time when market participants still think that capability either doesn't exist or is new. And we sort of go, really? Because we've been doing that for 5 years. And the genesis of that is actually super interesting. And I was actually reminded of it today, quite funnily. But the genesis is that a couple of oil brokers came to us who were existing customers on mobile voice and SMS. And they said to us, like, suddenly all our brokers are on WhatsApp. And Asia, you know, trading Brent, you know, in the late close, Asia's obviously a lot later, and they want to confirm that trade, and they're doing it over WhatsApp. And I need a tool to be able to capture that comms and then route it to the exchange. And we said, well, where's this come from? And they all said, well, I can't use Yahoo Messenger anymore because that's been end of life. And literally an entire community became homeless, and like, you know, locusts and bees and any other insects, they just move en masse to a new platform.
Yeah.
And then they stay. And WhatsApp, you know, we're recording something north of 5 million WhatsApp messages a month for, you know, hundreds of market participants, thousands of end users. And it's absolutely fascinating because this isn't this is not a social channel where people are saying, hey, Travis, you know, what bar should we meet in? This is, hey, give me a price on this. What price did we agree? Where's the market at that, you know, on that instrument, etc. This is genuine, you know, pre-trade, execution and post-trade risk management happening on WhatsApp and WeChat and Telegram. And it's been happening for 5 years. Yeah. And how we architect our business is we say, look, liquidity is free, right? It's free market capitalism. If your client wants to interact with you on a certain channel, you have to allow them to do that and exercise their choice. You cannot enforce something on them. And COVID has changed that, as we just talked about, right? Gone are the days of enforcing work habits on people. You have to adapt and you have to show resilience. And we want to be able to say, look, wherever your clients or however your clients want to reach you, we can provide a robust, secure, compliant framework for that. That's essentially our core philosophy. We do not want to inhibit business, especially not now with all the other macro challenges going on.
Well, I think that's a great way to talk about kind of that pivot that people are using this data for, right? But historically, and exactly what you're talking about, they've been using this data, these requirements the regulatory requirements to surveil this activity, just to tick the box, right? To figure that out. But now it's shifted. It's shifted to whether you want to use business intelligence or whatever these terms are, managing risk. But talk a little bit about that pivot that you're seeing from your clients to use this data in other ways outside of regulatory responsibility.
Yeah, so I mean, communications data is absolutely fascinating, right? You could argue that it's the most raw, most context-rich and content-rich data you're going to have, whether you're JP Morgan or GlaxoSmithKline or Coinbase or whoever, right? Getting into the conversation where people are talking about something, agreeing something, that is rich. The transaction data only tells you one side of the story, but you're missing all of the context, right? And communications, and I think more broadly, the market is waking up to that fact. Communications is inherently incredibly difficult to capture, to index, to catalog, even before you get to surveil and analyze. Why? Because we all speak in a different way, we all speak a different language, we all have different intonation, and applying automation and technology to that is actually really, really hard, which is why not many people do it. But if you get it right and you build your house in a structured way, you can start to say, okay, now I've got something really interesting, right? Because I can look at Travis and Oliver, and I can look at a bilateral relationship that has existed for years, and I can now say, oh, hang on a minute, something's changed. Because I've learned what normal looks like on that deviation curve, I can say, Travis isn't calling Oliver as much as he used to, or Oliver's not WhatsApping Travis. What's going on? Both of them are still employed. And actually what it comes down to is, Oliver's having marital issues, or Travis is, having some issues with his school kids, or Travis is looking to resign from the firm. And I can get a jump on that. We often, having worked in these big firms, we realize that they're quite depersonalized. And this sort of data can help us personalize them again and have that conversation with somebody before they make a mistake or they do something stupid. Our belief at VoxSmart is we're not out there to catch bad actors. We're out there to prevent good actors making mistakes and doing stupid things, right? And usually it's making mistakes. It's booking the wrong trade, the wrong direction, the wrong notional, and being able to get there quickly and mitigate the risk and mitigate the problem. That's where I think we want to get to, both as VoxSmart, as Oliver, as a market, as an ecosystem. And I think that's a much better way of looking at it than the inverse of the rule of law, which suggests, everybody's guilty unless they prove themselves innocent, which I've seen rhetoric of in our space. Our view is everybody's innocent until they're proven guilty, but let's look at how we can keep them innocent with the context that is driven by that communications data.
Yeah, it's just critical, isn't it? Across, that the comms data, the trade data, you marry those up, and then you can really build a case for that innocence or for that mistake, or if it's a bad actor, that bad actor, right? You have a real picture then, as compared to these little slices of activity. And that's why when we marry those two worlds together using our two technologies, that's why you then have that audit trail, you have the ammunition, you have the context that you need to be able to do your job and to actually gain intelligence from that activity.
I completely agree, and I think you and I have talked about the idea that it's the holy grail, right? Being able to click on a trade and see all of the communications that surround that trade, or click on some communications and be able to see all of the transactions that come off of that communications. Absolutely critical. But also, use it as a performance management tool. Hey, look, I can see Oliver, loads of communications, but where are all his trades? you know,
Yeah.
versus Travis, who's just a machine on the desk. He's booking all these trades, but hang on a minute, post 2008, there needs to be a client order attached to all of those. So where's the communication, Travis? And, you know, being able to actually understand and build out what normal looks like for individuals, for desks, for businesses, and then start to take action on that. That's what makes me excited about being at VoxSmart every day and having these conversations in this industry, in this time. It's unbelievably exciting.
On that note, we call it quick cuts for a reason. The quest for the holy grail of surveillance continues. Great to have you. Really appreciate. Super excited about our partnership. If anyone has any questions about it, obviously we'll send information out. You guys can, you know, go to our websites, and there'll be a recording of this as well. Happy to talk to anyone about how we work together and how we can help you. So, Oliver, really appreciate it, man. Great to work with you. We'll talk soon.
Good man. Take care. See you. Cheers. Bye.